I'll speak in Romanian. Bună ziua!
Hello. It is a great pleasure to again receive at Cotroceni Palace the visit of the NATO Secretary General, Mr. Jens Stoltenberg, a close friend of Romania.
Welcome to Bucharest, here to Cotroceni, and thank you for your great leadership of NATO and for being such a good friend of Romania. We evaluated together the security situation of the Euro-Atlantic space as generated by Russia's aggression against Ukraine, with a focus on the eastern flank and the Black Sea area. Tomorrow in Bucharest, we'll see the start of the first meeting of the NATO member states' foreign ministers hosted by Romania. This is also the first high-level allied meeting hosted in Bucharest after the NATO summit of 2008. An important meeting on whose agenda we will also see the topics that we approached in our dialogue today. In discussions with the Secretary General, I emphasized the need to have the quickest implementation of the decisions adopted at the historic summit in Madrid this year. The Foreign Ministers' meeting is an important landmark in this process and also in the preparation for the 2023 summit in Lithuania, in Vilnius. I recall that the strategic importance of the Black Sea was included on Romania's initiative for the first time in the new strategic concept adopted at the NATO summit in Madrid. In that context, we reiterated the relevance of the quickest implementation of the Madrid decisions on the strengthening of the forward defense posture on the eastern flank of the alliance. In turn, Romania will continue to bring a substantial contribution to NATO's collective defense and the strengthening of the alliance's capabilities, continuing to operate as a provider of security and stability in the region. This commitment is based on concrete steps, primarily on the decision to increase national defense expenditures from 2% of the GDP currently to 2.5% of the GDP starting the very next year, 2023. Together with Secretary General Stoltenberg, we noted the substantial progress that we've achieved at Allied level in the almost 10 months that have passed since his last visit to Romania. This progress is reflected in a significantly stronger NATO posture on the eastern flank, including in Romania and in the Black Sea region. As of February, since February and so far, NATO and our allies deployed important effectives in Romania with the role of deterrence, reassurance and defense, so that at present we're hosting approximately 5,000 allied troops. The NATO battle group in Romania is in a full development process, including in terms of the elements that will make it possible to grow to brigade level. We will continue to coordinate closely with France, which is the framework nation, together with the Netherlands, Belgium and Luxembourg to attain the full operational capacity of this structure as soon as possible. In that context, I showed that Romania is acting to comply with its own obligations as a host nation. I wish to once again thank all the allies for the solidarity they demonstrated throughout this period, including to the United States of America, our strategic partner, for their important contribution to Romania's security and that of our region. In today's meeting, we also emphasized the firm and concrete support of Romania for the sovereignty, territorial integrity and independence of Ukraine. We emphasized the importance of increased support by the Alliance, both for Ukraine and for the most vulnerable NATO partners in the region, Republic of Moldova, Georgia and Bosnia-Herzegovina. Romania will continue to provide multi-dimensional assistance to Kiev at all levels. To the same extent, as you know, we're making sustained efforts in support of the Republic of Moldova to help overcome the social, economic and energy difficulties generated by the war in Ukraine. A complementary topic is the increase of the strategic resilience in the Black Sea region, which includes key aspects such as energy security or freedom of navigation. I thank the Secretary General for his efforts to coordinate NATO's modernization to make it possible to respond to all threats and challenges. Implementing the strategic concept will lead to an increased role for our alliance, depending on which is not just the Euro-Atlantic space security, but also the stability of international order based on rules and principles. Russia's actions are a deliberate attempt to undermine and destroy this order. The way we choose to respond to this challenge will largely shape the future of our world. That is why we need, more than ever, a strong and solidary NATO. And I expect the ministerial meeting that starts tomorrow will reconfirm this goal. I wish you every success in the proceedings of the ministerial meeting and in all of your work, Secretary General. Thank you very much. You have the floor.
President Iohannis, dear Klaus, thank you for the warm welcome. It is really a pleasure to be back in Bucharest for the meeting of NATO Foreign Ministers. And let me thank Romania for hosting the meeting. And also let me thank you, President Iohannis, for your strong personal commitment to our alliance, to NATO, at this critical time for our security. You contribute to our shared security in many different ways. Your troops serve in our battle group in Poland. You contribute to NATO missions in Kosovo and Iraq. And you also host a key system for NATO's ballistic missile defense. I also welcome your strong commitment to maintain defense spending above 2% of GDP. Investing in our defense is essential as we face the greatest security crisis in a generation. Today in our meeting we discussed security in the Black Sea region, which is of strategic importance for the whole of NATO, and the challenges posed by Russia's illegal war in Ukraine. In response to Russia's aggression, NATO is reinforcing its presence from the Baltic to the Black Sea. We have set up new battle groups, including the one led by France here in Romania. Fighter jets from Canada also help to keep your skies safe, and US Patriot missiles boost your defenses. This sends a clear message that NATO is here. We will do what is necessary to protect and defend all allies. Here in Bucharest, NATO Foreign Ministers will address ways to step up our support for Ukraine, as well as other partners facing Russian pressure, Bosnia and Herzegovina, Georgia and Moldova. As a neighbor to Ukraine, you have proven a generous host to over 1.5 million refugees. You assist with the export of millions of tons of Ukrainian grain to help ease the global food crisis. And you provide significant military assistance to Ukraine. We cannot let Putin win. This would show authoritarian leaders around the world that they can achieve their goals by using military force and make the world a more dangerous place for all of us. So it is in our own security interests to support Ukraine. So, Mr. President, thank you again, and I look forward to our continued cooperation. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Bună seara, Ramona Avramescu, televiziunea română.
Hello, I'm Ramona Avramescu from the Romanian National TV. Question for the Secretary General. President Zelensky warned last night his population to be prepared for a new onslaught of attacks against Ukrainian cities, attacks by Russia. What information does the Alliance have about this, and how is it adjusting its support for Ukraine under these circumstances? And for President Iohannis, considering the developments lately in Ukraine, Romania would need a stronger allied presence, additional from what was put in place in Madrid with troops, military equipment, or other things like that. Is that true?
So what we have seen over the last weeks is horrific attacks against Ukrainian cities, critical infrastructure, and also residential areas. And what we see is that President Putin is trying to destroy the power system, the gas infrastructure, and basic services for the Ukrainian people. And by doing that, when we enter winter, demonstrates that President Putin is now trying to use a weapon, use the winter as a weapon of war against Ukraine. And this is horrific, and we need to be prepared for more attacks. That's the reason why NATO allies have stepped up their support to Ukraine, also with additional air defense systems. Allies are providing advanced air defense systems and different systems that can both address the threats that are represented by the different types of drones, but also cruise and ballistic missiles. And I expect that one of the messages from the Foreign Ministerial meeting here in Bucharest will be the need to further step up the provision both of air defense systems, but also, of course, spare parts, training, and ammunition to the different air defense systems, because we need to help Ukraine to defend themselves against this horrific type of warfare.
My response is yes. It is necessary to have more deterrence and defensive force on the eastern flank. I said that from the very beginning, actually, to be specific. And even today, with the Secretary General, I discussed the same matters. In my opinion, it is necessary to have an increased number of allied troops, but that is not sufficient. Additionally, from that, in order to be able to be a solid deterrent and defense, we need equipment. More specifically, pre-positioned equipment. These things are things that we discussed at the Madrid summit. What we need now is to see these decisions become reality. The decision in Madrid was more of a generic sort of thing. Everybody agreed that was something that needed to be done. But right now, I wish, and that was my part, to see action taking place. Additionally, we need very specific plans, so that in case of an attack, it will be very clearly known who what troops will they send where? We cannot let these decisions be made at the last possible moment. We cannot afford to be taken by surprise. We need that. Besides these plans, we also need to develop logistics for fuel and so on. All these, in my view, in our view, are necessary. And I think that next year's Vilnius summit, we might see much more courageous and much more concrete decisions along these lines. Hello, Andra Timo from Bloomberg. Question for the Secretary General. Seeing the intensity of attacks against Ukraine lately, do you have any information that we might also see an additional escalation in Ukraine? What are the actual expectations for results too from the meetings you will have tomorrow and the day after tomorrow in Bucharest? And the fact that a decision has been delayed about Finland and Sweden, to what extent does it influence the alliance? And for the Romanian president, as you said, especially in terms of energy, the situation in Moldova is very difficult. Is there a risk for the leadership in Chișinău to be impacted by this, or Europe's or Moldova's pro-European itinerary? Thank you.
First on Finland and Sweden, all allies made an historic decision when we agreed at the summit in Madrid in June to invite Finland and Sweden to become members of NATO. And we also signed the accession protocols, and already 28 out of NATO's 30 allied members have ratified the accession protocols in their national parliaments, and that includes also Romania. I'm grateful for the strong support from Romania to have Finland and Sweden as members. I'm confident that all allies will ratify, and to have Finland and Sweden as members of NATO will of course be important for Finland and Sweden, but it will also be important for the whole alliance. It will strengthen NATO because Finland and Sweden have well-trained, well-equipped, high-end military capabilities, and they are also important for the North, and the high North and the North Atlantic is important to the link between North America and Europe, which is the backbone of NATO. And then I also think that if you look at the map, we all realize that our ability to reinforce the eastern flank, especially the Baltics, but also Poland, the Baltic countries, is very much strengthened by the fact that we then have Finland and Sweden as full members. So it's good for Finland and Sweden, it's good for NATO, and it's good for the transatlantic bond to have them as full members. Then on escalation in Ukraine, well, wars are hard to predict. What we have seen over the last months is that President Putin made a big strategic mistake. He underestimated the strength of the Ukrainian people, the Ukrainian armed forces, and the Ukrainian political leadership. He thought that he was going to win, to take control over Kyiv within days. What we have seen is that the Ukrainian armed forces were able to push the Russian forces out of the north around Kyiv, then in the east around Kharkiv, and then to liberate also territory in the south with Kherson. Our task is to provide support to Ukraine because we know that the only way to achieve an outcome of this war, which ensures that Ukraine prevails as a sovereign independent nation, is to strengthen their position on the battlefield. Most likely the war will end at some stage at the negotiating table, but the outcome of those negotiations are totally dependent on the situation on the battlefield. So we support Ukraine also because we know that It will be a tragedy for the Ukrainian people if President Putin wins, but it will also make the world more dangerous, because then the message to President Putin and to other authoritarian leaders will be that if they use military force, violate international law, as President Putin is doing in Ukraine, they will achieve their goals. The world will be more dangerous, but also we will be more vulnerable. So therefore we need to stay the course, not back down, and continue to support Ukraine.
Moldova is a very special concern for us, for me, and not just as of this year, since they've started having great difficulties. We've been helping them ever since Romania has been a democratic state, and Moldova firmly committed along the pro-European route. Moldova has a president and a parliamentary majority that are all pro-European, pro-reform. We are glad of it and encourage this pro-European and pro-reform direction. We do also a little bit more than just encourage them. We help them specifically with expertise, with very concrete things: electricity, fuel, wood, gas. We are fully aware, nevertheless, that for the everyday citizen in Moldova, things are complicated. We're therefore discussing with all of our allies, partners and friends to find things that we also can do together to help Moldova. Personally, I don't see any signs that there might be changes in Moldova's approach and outlook. On the contrary, I think people have understood very clearly that this is a very complicated period for themselves, as it is for us. But that doesn't mean that reforms should stop. For us in Romania, the challenge is a big one, because besides reforms and specific support that we're very willing to extend, it is also necessary to see the achievement of a much improved infrastructure, transportation facilities, networks, bridges, roads. We are ready to do all that together. It is extremely important, of course, for the Republic of Moldova to remain firmly committed on its pro-European, pro-democratic, pro-reform itinerary. On the other hand, it is also very clear that the everyday citizens, the local administrations, need additional support, and we're willing to extend that. Thank you very much, everyone.